Welcome to the Relationship Cycle with Jorge and Nelsa, where we discuss dating and other significant relationships. And welcome to the Relationship Cycle with Jorge and Nelsa. This is your host, Nelsa, and my wonderful co-host,
Jorge Medina.
All right, Poppy, we've got a great show lined up. Got a wonderful guest this evening for the show. So whenever you're listening to this podcast, we are talking about narcissistic traits and narcissistic abuse in relationships. And our guest tonight is Vanessa, or known as Coach V, who not only is a certified life coach, but also a survivor of a narcissistic abusive relationship. So welcome to the show, Vanessa.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here this evening.
Awesome. Well, we just want to jump right in because we had lots of input. And so first of all, let us begin the show by saying none of us are licensed therapists. And so we want to really talk about red flags. We want to talk about what healthy dating ought to be, and some of, what to look for, what to expect based on research that we've done, based on experiences. And then we did have some really good input from our audience on Facebook. And, we want to share that as usual on the show because our listeners are really, you're the reason we're doing the show in the first place. People who said they want to talk about this. It's been a really hot topic out there. Really didn't hear about narcissism a lot when I was growing up and dating. Even in the early 90s, it was not a word that you heard a lot of people use in terms of relationships and marriages. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's something, I would say it's something that recently, since I think nowadays mental health is on the forefront of society. And I feel that we all know somebody that kind of battles with mental health issues and to some capacity or level. I think now a lot of these things are starting to be more on the forefront and on the spotlight. And just, I did my own homework and research on this topic, and it is a very lengthy topic with a lot of different little branches that you can kind of go off to. So we're going to try to focus on giving people some good, tools, some good, things to recognize and to be mindful. One thing that I thought that was interesting was that, so the word narcissist derives from Greek mythology. Mm-hmm. So there was, I guess, someone in Greek mythology called Narcissus.
Yes.
And the story goes that he went into some cave of sorts and he saw a reflection of himself on water. And because he was so enamored and so in love with his own reflection, mm-hmm. that he died because he refused to drink the water because he was so enamored by his reflection. So just to kind of give you an idea with what we're dealing with here.
Right. And I also wanted to talk about the DSM, which is the mental health diagnosis, where they put, what they actually consider a narcissistic personality disorder to be. And the way they give the criteria for that: a preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. A belief that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high status people or institutions. A need for excessive admiration. So while we are not therapists, that is what the criteria for a diagnosis for narcissism is. And I felt like this was important for us to bring out in the show because one of our Facebook posts talked about so many people throw narcissism around. It's the buzzword right now in terms of relationships with people. And the comment was, everyone's not a narcissist. Some people are selfish. Some people are um, egotistical. Some people lack personal responsibility. Some people are emotionally abusive, but it does not all necessarily mean that they are what you would say they're diagnosable with narcissism. So we want to make it clear to everyone who's listening that we're not trying to diagnose anybody. We're not trying to have you diagnose anybody based on the show. You need to go to a qualified healthcare professional who can do that. But what we are trying to say is there are some traits that people have that tend to border on narcissism. And so we're talking about narcissistic traits, and that is a difference. And we want to make that absolutely clear from the front. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Vanessa, let's
Yes.
get you into the mix. Tell
Okay.
us a little bit about your background and how did this even become a niche of sorts for you?
Okay. Well, for me, you are best qualified to help someone with something that you've gone through. And for myself, I was in an emotional abusive relationship. Um, and due to, I say a rabbit trail of things, which led me to the research of narcissism and narcissistic abuse. Um, Back around about 2015, I had a very had I was married. It was a very much a roller coaster type love emotionally, and I had gone to many therapists, and I was just really trying to really find out answers for myself about myself, because it seemed like I was always a problem within the relationship. And so it was one therapist that I went to that I was dealing with some issues also from my childhood, and she specialized in just in dealing with victims of abuse. And so speaking to her and telling her about what was going on in my relationship, she was the one that was like, I got to hear both sides, but it sounds like emotional abuse. And so for me, you know, I was really in denial at first because I didn't feel as though I was the type of person that would be in an abusive relationship. And however, as time passed by and I really started stepping outside of my relationship and the things that was happening, and started doing the research, and then one thing led to another, because in emotional abuse, in narcissistic abuse, there's a cycle that occurs. And as you said, as far as narcissistic traits, um, I, as you introduced, I too am not a therapist. However, I felt as though my partner had a lot of traits that mirrored what I was finding out. And so with that, uh, and to me, it was very textbook. I could even go through some scenarios that I would never think that anyone would ever, say they went through. And here it is, I'm listening to a video. And for example, let's say you fall asleep and because you're tired, and then you wake up and this person is upset with you and withdrawn for you. I mean, although this could happen in any situation, but for me, it was personal because you when you're in that type of relationship, you start to question everything that you do, because you never know what's going to trigger them to be upset with you. It's like it's walking on eggshells, as you will hear say many times uh, from victims of narcissistic abuse.
That's got to be very difficult, and that's got to be emotionally draining to feel that you're constantly walking on eggshells. And from my research, I noticed that I want to say that part of the allure why a lot of people almost get caught up in some of these dynamics. And let's be clear, this is not exclusive to men. There are women or even binary people that can share these traits and characteristics. So this is not exclusive to men, although, to be fair, it is more common in men as far as some of these characteristics that we're going to jump into. But for example, the love bombing, right? A lot of people talked about that. And let's be real. I think we all enjoy that and we all appreciate that. And frankly, there's nothing wrong with it. However, when you first meet somebody, right, and
Right.
they're already showering you with praise and gifts and all of that, almost to the extent that nobody else has, that to me is a red flag.
Right.
Yeah.
And for me, now that I'm on the other side and reflecting back, and even in some relationships after that, because I've, of course, once your eyes have been open, you become a little bit more vigilant, sometimes over vigilant, but nonetheless, you see behavior. And one of the things with the love bombing in the beginning of the phase is that they are quick to proclaim love. Now, I don't want to cancel out, those, diehard romantics who say it was love at first sight. So I'm not, trying to erase those possibilities, but you will find that when it comes to those who are presenting red flags, trying to quickly like capture the attention of that person, and as they get them in their web with a bunch of love bombing and just that fairy tale, I can't believe it's true, I can't believe this person is mine type feeling, because they seem to be checking all the boxes. And then the next thing you know, you're professing love too, because it seems, because they're speaking, they may be even speaking your love language, doing everything correct. And so so you're right. I know we're going to do some more, and I don't want to go into another trait, but yes, the love bombing is a big one, because even you hear stories of people that you never thought would be in these type relationships, very well educated, very those who, I mean, it does not limit. It is no respect of person.
Right.
A person, it could be a rich person, a poor person, a highly educated person, someone who never went to school at all. It's like, because when it comes to emotions and matters of the heart, when it's been spoken to, you let your guard down, you become vulnerable, and that's how they get in.
So basically, what we want to hammer is that, look, I don't know. I'm not here to say what the right timing is for gifts and all that, because obviously that's something that is going to be unique between both individuals or multiple partners, depending on your dynamic. However, if somebody, right, early on starts to shower you, with monetary gifts or just, over the top compliments, don't just take it in stride. Keep that in the back of your mind that,
Right.
okay, it's a little early,
Right.
but all right, but keep that in the back of your mind, because that can be a red flag. So it's just something to be mindful, because I really don't know when is it appropriate to buy somebody a gift. That really is going to be depending on how often you see the person, and how well you mesh and how much time you're spending together. So there's so many factors with that. So I don't think there's a hard line as far as, all right, on the fourth date it's okay to buy me a gift, but it is something to be mindful if it's too early or just too over the top.
Correct. And as always, you just want to listen to your gut, and whatever it is that feels right for you. Because, for instance, if you know that and for me, if someone bought me a Louis Vuitton purse and I haven't even declared that I want to be in a relationship with this person, well, that might be for me. It could be like, that's different.
Yeah.
I really don't know what that means, but I'm gonna, I'm gonna tag it for, because it feels like that's something that may occur within the relationship for me, not somebody on the outside.
No,
So,
I think that's a good kind of example. If somebody's like, hey, it's the second date, you're already buying me jewelry. Hold on, Romeo. That's a little fast.
Right.
Unless you're a gold digger, and then carry on. But, if you're looking for a really healthy relationship, I think sometimes, and we had some earlier discussion, Vanessa, talking about looking at your own issues of self. Sometimes we want to hear those things because we've not ever been complimented, or we've never been treated special. and we've got holes that we need filling. And so really pay attention to how eager you are or how much you need to have someone else validate you, because I think that leaves the door open when we're talking about how do you even get involved with somebody who, you know, can discard you so easily after you get on into the relationship. And I think some of that is about us being vulnerable and leaving those doors open for emotional abuse.
Right.
If that's what we've been taught in different relationships that we've witnessed, or different relationships, you know, with authority figures or parental figures or whatever, then sometimes we gravitate to what feels normal, even though it may not be healthy. So,
Right.
other things on Psych Central, they talk about really pay attention to how, if you start talking, do they glaze over? Is it just about material things? Are the conversations just about their interest? You know, a very self-centered, self-serving type attitude in the relationship. And if your needs don't tend to matter until you decided maybe this isn't the relationship for me, and the love bombing comes in, because that's where a lot of that love bombing, I think, you know, I've witnessed in certain relationships where you get ready to leave and then all of a sudden they want to talk. All of a sudden, you know, talk to me, tell me what you want. I don't know how to fix this if you don't talk to me, but you've been saying the whole time, we can't have a conversation about real things. We can't do anything I ever want to do. And then you get a season of that. But if it's not consistent, I
Right.
think that's where you really got to look at, is this person, um, is their inconsistency lining up with, you know, traits of narcissistic abuse, or, you know, somebody who is very selfish and self-centered or whatever.
I mean,
Um,
you said a mouthful with the consistency part, uh, because also one of the things that they will do, or I mean, we all do it, but this is excessive. And as Jorge said before, you just tag it, because once they start to add up, you really have to then make a big decision, and that is to keep going or to call it quits. They are information seekers, so they want to learn about you. They want to learn about your likes and dislikes and your weaknesses and your strengths and your vulnerabilities, because they're going to mirror you. And I guess in a way that's how we all have our narcissistic tendencies,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
we
Yeah,
like
there's
to see ourselves mirrored in someone else.
right.
However, the motive there is not to continue on with that. It is just to get you on board, and then the consistency isn't there. And typically, I bet you if you ask someone that's a victim, they can probably pinpoint when the first time they kind of was like, that's different. Usually he would do this, or usually she would do that, but um we've gone through this before. I never got this reaction from them before. This is crazy. And it could be something such as a blow up. I recall in my relationship when we were going home, because I was in college and he was in the service, and we lived close to one another. And so we decided to stop by a restaurant to get something to eat through the drive through. And so he was driving a straight drive, and so he had to change gears. And so growing up, whenever my family, we had straight drives and we ordered food, and I would sit and wait until the person had changed all the gears, and now we're smooth sailing, and then I'd hand them their food. And so that's what I was doing. And all of a sudden his hand came across to me and slapped the fries that was out of my hand. And it caught me so off guard. I was actually like, is that a joke? I was like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with you? And then he was really serious.
Mm.
wow, that's
He was
crazy.
serious. He told me I was selfish, that he got the food because he was hungry. So he really blew up at me. And it was something that was really simple. But I remember that as being very monumental in our relation, in me seeing him act out of the norm of what I was used to.
And ladies,
Wow.
people, I would strongly advise, especially when you're out here dating, and let's not kid ourselves. People are seeing multiple people. Maybe keep a journal, write stuff down, because
Mm-hmm.
if you're considering multiple partners, or you're still, you haven't had your wagon on somebody in particular, sometimes write some of these things down, or some of these events, or some of these,
Incidents.
moments, so that you can
Mm-hmm.
refer back, because once you're drunk in love, it's too late.
Right.
It's too late to
Right.
really just, walk away unscathed and unharmed. We know that when somebody's in love, it's just hard to detach. But one characteristic that I really want to focus on, that my research yielded, was supreme arrogance. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that sometimes that can be difficult to determine the difference between arrogance and confidence. So I'm going to try to give a little context with that. Arrogance, if you notice, if you pay close attention, when somebody is arrogant, they're constantly putting others down to make themselves look better.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody is just confident in their skills, they don't need to put other people down to make themselves look good. They just say, hey, I got this. I went to school. I'm a psychology major. I know a little something about psychology. Let me try to help you out. Or, hey, I know about interior design. I went to school for that, and I know how to do it. That, you always want to pay attention to that. Is somebody being arrogant, or is somebody being confident? And oftentimes that can be very hard to distinguish with people. But that is also a big red flag when somebody is very arrogant.
I'd like to say, though, in that, for people who are arrogant, they often don't have the skill set that they claim they do. They often claim they know so and so, or they're friends with such and such, but some of that stuff never materializes. Whereas a person who is confident does what they do, and you see them do what they do. It isn't just a conversation, is it just name dropping? They might actually take you to a restaurant that's a 5-star restaurant, as opposed to, oh yeah, I could take you there. I've been there plenty of times, but you never see the inside of McDonald's. It's like, oftentimes I think that's the big difference, is confident people do, arrogant people talk.
I like
So
that, Nelsa. That's great context to the conversation. So that's something that, just to keep an eye on. That's mainly what we want to point out. And to be fair, this isn't just something that you're going to come across in relationships. You may have acquaintances, you may have family members, you may have bosses, you may have
co-workers.
people that you do business with, where you need to be mindful, because if they're narcissists, this can also get you in hot water as well.
Well, and that's something too, like, again, referring back to the articles like Central did, I really like the way they put this. Sometimes narcissistic behavior, even if it's personality disorder, if they've actually got a diagnosis, the behavior occurs as a defense mechanism for low self-esteem, insecure attachment issues, trauma from childhood abuse, or family of origin issues, or even childhood, um, like one source said, spoiling, where maybe the parent was maybe a narcissist, or had traits of a narcissist, and gave to one child in particular, while making the other children feel some type of way. Because they do have like a game that is played with other children. So the parent gives and gives and gives, makes the one child feel like they're the supreme child, until they're ready to punish them. If the child gets out of order, gets out of line, then a lot of times, just like they'll do in a relationship with others. And Vanessa, I'd love to hear your take on this. But they start withdrawing the affection, withdrawing the gifts, withdrawing emotion as a form of punishment, even withdrawing sex as a form of punishment in the relationship.
You're right. It all boils down to control. They really have, because of that, let me back it up. Although, when Jorge was saying it, talking about the Greek mythology and how they love their reflection, it's funny how in reality, the parts of themselves that they hate is the parts that they're trying to have that false self cover
Mm-hmm.
up. And in order to keep the narrative going, they have to have control.
Mm.
So whoever does not line up with the image that they need to keep that mask on,
And the script.
right,
Mm-hmm.
the script going. So they've got to manipulate the other person so that they are enmeshed. That means that they have this, we operate with one brain, one mind of thinking, and it's mine. My way of thinking is the only way of thinking, because my way of thinking, I've calculated it, and that is what's going to keep my image the way I wanted it to maintain, so that I
Right.
can feel good about myself.
So if you ever stepped out of that um, image, what were some of the repercussions for you?
Number one would be the silent treatment. And then for me, that was my
Mm.
clue that evidently I've done something wrong. Then there
Mm-hmm.
would, as you said before, that he would be withdrawn, didn't show me any affection, not talking to me, and I felt like a child, uh, at any moment I'm getting ready to be punished because evidently I've done something wrong.
Mm.
Mm.
And of course, we've mentioned love bombing, but there are other parts of the cycle that goes with that. And after that, kind of like my notice, is going to come uh, the lashing of words, because with depending on what kind of narcissist that you have, because there are so many out there.
Right, there is a spectrum.
There's so
That's what I've
many
read.
titles that they give them these days. I think that my partner exemplified those of a covert narcissist. So for me, there would be not be anything that the public would know or see, because to them they were a charming individual who could do no wrong. And then inside of the home, that is where the mask fell, and I would then experience whatever dumping that needed to be required, that was needed for him to regulate his emotions so that he could be okay again.
Interesting. Great conversation, guys. Another characteristic that I want to highlight that we already kind of touched on is gaslighting. And what I want to do is give a little bit more context, because I know that term gets used a lot nowadays, but we want to make sure that people really truly understand what it is to gaslight someone. So from my research, gaslighting is when someone is distorting reality and making you feel that you're the crazy one, or that you're the one that's not seeing it correctly. For example, if I come home and I'm wearing a white collar shirt and I have a big lipstick mark on my white collar shirt, and then my fictitious wife says, "Hey, what's that on your shirt? It looks like a lipstick mark." And I say, "Oh no, that was just tomato sauce from lunch this morning, or this afternoon. That's not what you think." So that is me trying to distort reality, manipulate her, and obviously lie to her, because obviously it is a lipstick mark on my shirt, but I am now making you question reality with my approach and my manipulation.
And two, even beyond that, which is a great basic example, Jorge, I think that makes it really clear, like how the technique works. But then there's the manipulation of, oh, so you don't trust me? Oh, so you think I can't go anywhere and not be trusted with other people? So
Oof.
you got a problem being jealous. I didn't see that in you before. I don't really
Mm.
think that's very becoming of you. You really ought to work on that. So
Oof.
not only do you get the, no, that's not what this is,
Right.
but then it's the, why would you think that? You don't trust me? Is that what this is in this relationship? Like really trying to really gas you up with,
Yeah.
you're the one who created. Or take it another step further, I wouldn't be in other places with people who do X, Y, and Z if you were more of this, that, or the other.
So then you're, as you know, the individual, then you're the one kind of like, wait, what? Like, maybe he's right. Or you start to question your own reality and your own sanity. And it's not just that. I mean, this happens in all different scenarios where you're constantly thinking, hey, is he right? Maybe I am crazy, or maybe I'm not looking at this right. So you start to doubt and you start to question your own reality, which obviously can spill over and, you know, really affect you mentally.
Right. And also boundaries. A narcissist is good at setting their own boundaries, but very good at stepping all over someone else's. And when that person attempts to stand up for the boundaries, the narcissist will then be like, oh, you're too sensitive. You're sensitive.
I was just joking.
I was just joking. You know, I can't believe you thought that's not what I meant when I said that. You misread me, you know. So yes, it's crazy making. It makes a person doubt their own reality, and therefore they start to rely on the other person's reality, which becomes very unsafe because you're no longer an independent person, well, an individual coming together to make a relationship work. You become codependent. You
That's what I
become
was going to bring
enmeshed.
up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you are trying to make yourself better so that you can line up with this person so that you don't ruffle their feathers, because whatever you think seems to not be the best answer, the best way to do things, because you've lost your identity. You've lost who you are because of them always ragging you on the things that you bring to the table.
Well, and you know what? That creates that trauma bonding. You know, another part of the cycle, Vanessa, that you talked about earlier. You know, from a coach perspective, what do you think is one of the best ways a person can start to heal? Because this type of cycle it can be ongoing for years and years and years, based on, you know, how codependent you become, how more, you know, how strong the traits of the narcissistic personality is, or what have you. But what do you think one of the best ways to break this cycle is for people?
Well, number one, you cannot change anyone. You cannot, you don't have that power. A person changes when they are ready to change, or hopefully, or at least take the steps to do the work to change. You only have control of yourself. And if whatever is being rendered in that relationship, if for me, it was a reflection of how did I feel? I was not happy. I was sitting in anxiety. I was having anxiety attacks. And that was not the life that I wanted to live. So I had to really do some deep diving. One of the things that I knew was lacking in my life was self-love. So I had to really look at not only my present, but also my past. There were some patterns there from my past, my childhood. And I've said before, you know, I had other therapists. I finally found one that was a good fit, that was knowledgeable. So if you can afford to get a therapist, I strongly suggest that you find a knowledgeable therapist who specializes in abuse, emotional abuse, narcissistic abuse. Because even when I began my journey, there were, with my research, I was finding that unless a therapist really specialized in this type of behavior, they were clueless. They even had clients themselves who they themselves became victims of narcissistic abuse. And it's not funny, but it's just like, wow,
the irony.
Because the narcissist could come to their therapy appointment and use the same tactics on their therapist.
Wow.
So it was not, and this was about 12, probably about 9 years ago, that I think therapists really started to do the research and realize that this was a heavy hitter that was coming, and that they needed to really arm themselves and get the information out. So finding that therapist, really focusing on self-love, because like I said, if in that relationship you're not gaining peace, if you don't have if you're not accomplishing any goals that makes you feel good about yourself, then you really need to look at that and make some hard choices. I always tell people that I never tell anyone to get a divorce, but I do know that you do need to be in an environment, in a peaceful environment, in order to heal. You can't be in the same environment that made you sick to heal. So you
Vanessa.
have to make a decision on how that's going to be for you, whether it's you set up a sanctuary of peace in your home, or you actually leave and find a place of peace outside that home.
Vanessa, let me ask you something. So from my research, so I checked out Dr. Phil and Richard Grannon, who are obviously they have a lot of material on YouTube, and this is where I've gotten a lot of these talking points, and I would recommend people to check them out. But from the video that I saw that Dr. Phil mentioned, he pretty much said that it is what it is, and that usually somebody that's a narcissist, you can't change that. Like, you can't change their ways. And if Dr. Phil is saying that, because he's pretty, this is what he does for a living. Like, he helps to fix people and to change people, but he pretty much blatantly said that when you're dealing with the narcissist, it's either you prepare yourself and you know what you're walking into, and you're gonna walk in prepared, or you're gonna be in for a rude awakening, but you're not going to change and make this person some amazing, sweet, kind person all of a sudden. So I would imagine that's got to be extremely difficult, especially for women, because women are nurturers by nature.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So when a woman gets attached, or when a woman falls in love with a man who's a narcissist, and she's trying to help and support, but it's to no avail, because this is part of his fabric and his personality. And are you really going to be able to change somebody's personality?
Right.
Well, I think, again, like Vanessa said, you don't look at it as, I'm going to change someone. Either one. And this is, I think, a part of dating now. And, narcissists aside, whoever you see yourself attaching yourself to in a relationship, I think you need to be checking out their emotional IQ, their emotional intelligence, and asking questions about their mental health. Now, to me, between spiritual, mental, physical, financial health, like dating is more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And too often we think it's like off limits or impolite. You don't need to be so polite that you yoke yourself to somebody who is going to drag you through the ringer in any of those areas. But too often we're caught up in the physical attraction, or caught up in the, oh, this could be the one, and the story that we spun in our own head, as opposed to asking some hard-hitting questions. So I'll tell you right now, I'm happily seeing someone now. And one of the first questions that we talked about with one another was, what are you looking for? And, how's your mental health? Have you ever seen a therapist? I asked that for like one of the first questions, when things were starting to look serious, because I was just like, too often I've been that nice, polite, good girl, and just allow myself to sit back and just see what happens, and let myself get caught up in some foolishness and nonsense. And I was like, I'm getting too old for that. And I'm like, for those of you who are dating, after 30, after 40, like, you really got to start looking at people's behavior. How do they treat the waiters and waitresses?
Mm-hmm.
How are they treating the doormen? How are they treating, people that may not be considered, upper echelon? How are they conducting themselves with children and animals? Because that's always a key for me. I'm like, if kids don't like you, if animals don't like you, you need to try to do some deeper investigation because there is something in there. Because
Yeah, that's
they
a
have
lot of
primal
red
radar.
flags.
Yeah, before it gets, broken or whatever. Kids and babies and dogs usually have a primal radar about people's personalities. So, you really need to dig a little deeper, or do like you say, Dr. Phil says, prepare yourself. And then, like uh, Coach V said, there's a spectrum. Everybody is not out to control the world, but they might be egotistical. They might be very vain. They might be all about themselves. But then there might be some people who are out there who want to be sort of low key, and I'm okay if they take the lead all the time. You know what I'm saying? There are people who have been through some really horrible relationships who find this level with this particular person. They don't beat me. We go places sometimes. Um, they're predictable. Uh, so they might find I'm okay in this compared to what I've been in. But I think you do need to be informed. And that's why we're here. We want to educate, we want to inform, and we want to just be able to give you some basics to look for and maybe to watch out for.
And
Absolutely.
I love, like, I'm out here dating, and I love when I hear someone's story, because we all have a story, and not all of it is colored with roses and sprinkles. And that person says, and I go to therapy at least once a week or so many times a month, because to me, it's saying to your, it's that person is saying to me, I'm aware that there are some things that I need to address about myself for myself. So
agreed.
Right. So knowing that someone is doing their work is very attractive to me. Now, it's not to say that I still shouldn't, have my guard up and get more information, but it is to say that this person knows that that mental health is very much a real thing that we need to address so that we can have healthy relationships and a very abundant, fulfilling life.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like we said, right? Like you ladies touched on, is hey, it's just important to be aware and be mindful, because if you're just out here dating and just doing it aimlessly and randomly with no purpose and no information, you're going to get yourself in some very difficult predicaments. And then obviously once you get in your fields, and that kind of stuff can have real life consequences. And it's just important to educate yourself. Another characteristic that I wanted to highlight that I think is pretty easy to pick up on is no accountability. So when you're around someone who never takes blame, right, or takes
Lack of personal
accountability,
responsibility. Yeah.
no response, it's always everybody else's fault, right? It's always my manager, because of my manager I didn't get my raise, or everybody's trying to get me, or they rear-ended somebody, but it was the other person that should have been more aware. Like, be careful, be mindful of that, because if you never hear somebody say, hey, apologies, or hey, my fault, or something to that effect, that's a big red flag. If you hang out with somebody and you never have heard them say, yeah, I screwed up, or yeah, I made a mistake, or yeah, I kind of did this wrong, or whatnot, that's a red flag.
I can talk myself out of any ticket I get,
And also, I'm sorry. And also, Jorge, sometimes there is an apology, but if you follow the trail later on, they've taken that apology back in some type of way.
Oh, wow.
By saying, yeah, I did do that, but it was because you did that. Had you not did that, I wouldn't have done the thing that was offensive. And so therefore the apology that they told maybe 2 weeks ago is now null and void.
So it's like a half-ass apology then.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And also, I just wanted to add, I know we've covered a few, but I just want people to be aware of the cycle where you have that honeymoon phase, which is also love bombing. But then there comes the abuse. It can come without a warning. That's when they devalue you. That's when they are regulating their emotions by that superiority complex. And they need to feel good. So they're going to use whoever's in their path. It can be their partner, it could be their child, it could be their coworker, it could be their friend. They're going to devalue you in some way and then discard. I remember having ultimatums, thrown at me. If you don't improve, I don't know if I'll be able to continue in this. Which for me, being a codependent at that time, it was kind of like, well, I don't, I want to fix this. I want to fix this.
Right.
But also in that you become upset. And when you become upset, that's when they notice that, I may have, gone too far. So they hoover. They want to suck you back in. And they do that with false hope. You know what? I'm sorry. If we could just be better, if you could just be better, there's so much that we could get accomplished. I think we can do that. I think I can be a better person. And they're sucking you back in to start the cycle all over again.
And part of, in some of these conversations that we're sharing, obviously, is to, bring awareness, to kind of make people reflect.
Right.
But again, these are people that you're going to associate yourself in all walks of life. So I'm going to give you a personal example. The last girlfriend that I had, her and her baby daddy, they had an extreme volatile dynamic or co-parenting situation. And I could tell that he definitely, I've never met the man, but just from the conversations that I would see and hear, I could tell that he had some narcissistic traits. And the thing about narcissists is that when you open up and you divulge personal things, or when you're vulnerable and you share things, they may use those things against you for their benefit and gain, or just to blatantly hurt you because they feel that, you hurt me or you did me wrong, so now I'm going to return the favor, or I'm going to double or triple punish you. So as it relates to dealing with the baby daddy or dealing with, a relative or whatever, you want to play things close to the vest and basically be mindful of, being vulnerable and sharing too much information or too many details about your personal life, because that stuff may be used against you. So you don't want to give them ammo so that they use against you, and then they're playing mind games with you, and then they're using that to attack you.
Right. Absolutely.
I tell you what, one of the other traits was deflecting as well. Always the smoke off them onto something else, what's it? Smoke and mirrors, you're looking at them talking about this behavior, but they want to take it to a different place. Like you said, Vanessa, usually about you, and your behavior that they find, annoying, or, want to throw you in the way, put the spotlight on somebody else. I tell you, again, like, really, everybody, do your own self checks. We've talked a lot on the show about communication, but really check in with yourself. If you are starting to feel crazy, like, that's not a good way to be going down the road in a relationship.
Right.
Like, I don't know if anybody's really thought about that, but I think we need to point that out. Like, if somebody makes you feel crazy, and not in a good way, like you're questioning everything, you're second guessing yourself, and you really feel like, I don't know what's going on here, and you don't feel like yourself anymore. I think, like, we're talking about traits of the narcissistic personality, but I want to point us out to, in a feeling good relationship, you should feel good.
You should feel good.
Yeah.
Right?
Facts.
Right.
But how often do we think love is supposed to be like this turbulent, we got to be angry and have makeup sex, or we got to be in conflict, because that's what we're seeing so much now on so much of this non-reality TV shows that call themselves reality shows. I'm just like, a relationship should feel good, guys. You should feel good about yourself. You should feel good about your partner, and vice versa. And when you feel crazy, like, I've never thought that felt good.
there's
But
a saying, don't fuck with happy. And if you're
right.
not happy, then you need to go find happy. And if you are happy, don't fuck with it.
And if you know that you don't know what that is yet, stay your ass out of a relationship until you know for yourself what that is.
Right.
I'm telling
And
you, we could avoid so much if we would just dig into ourselves. What's Socrates? Know thyself, right?
right. And that's the point. The next point I wanted to make for myself personally is that I really had to, in my deep diving, look at the trauma from my past,
Mm,
because the things that was happening to me, I was like, why am I okay with this? Why am I still here? What keeps me uh, going on if I'm not happy in a relationship that should make me feel happy? For me, that that came to a head. It came to a head with my childhood wounds, and I had to go back and of course, I'm an adult now, so my mother and my father can't fix the things that happened in my childhood, but I had to. Now, some people may need a licensed therapist to do that. Um, However, for me, I did recognize that that was there. And with me, as the more I began to have my back, which is a word that is used, you hear people on their healing journey have my back, meaning that my boundaries, I hold my boundaries to a T. And when the narcissist see that you set a boundary, if you don't let them cross it, oh my goodness, they can't stand it. They can't stand it. So they're going to use every tool in their arsenal to try to degrade you, so you'll tear that boundary down. But you have to stay steady and say, I am worth it. This matters to me. You have to find out what matters to you, and hold it up. And as you said, until you can determine what matters to you, you might want to just, take a time out. Don't jump into another relationship, especially if you've left a narcissist, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to find another one because you still haven't figured it out.
mm.
I love it. This is amazing, riveting conversation, ladies, and everybody did their homework and came prepared. So I like it.
Yeah. And, there's so much more we can talk about, but I feel like this definitely is one of those shows that deserves a part two. Just because, like you said, there's so many, there's so much on the spectrum um, of narcissism, and the different traits, the different ways it plays out for people. But I think this has definitely helped to give our listeners a good base for diving into themselves, and then really doing some check-ins on their relationships to find out. And we're not by any means telling you guys you need to be out here diagnosing people, but we are telling you need to be safe emotionally, you need to be safe physically, sexually, financially, and taking stock of your relationship with some of these red flags. And if any of these things are checking out for you as you're listening, then first of all, make sure you're safe. Second of all, make sure that you've got some people that you can trust. Because of course, like you said earlier, Vanessa, they're charmers. And so other people may not believe you because the face that you see, they've made careful that nobody else sees that face. So you need to make sure there are people that you can talk to, whether it's a professional coaches, like Vanessa, who are specifically, uh, that's her niche. Not that you don't do other things, Vanessa, but I know just from our conversation, this has been a particular, um, this has been
This is
personal
my
for
area.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is
it's
my
been
area.
personal for you. So, or a therapist or someone who can help you, you know, un unlayer the cake you might find yourself in, because it's life is too short to be miserable, guys. I just got to reiterate that over and over. Life is too short for misery, and we've got to take charge of our happiness. Nobody else can do that for us.
And
Absolutely.
before we go, I just, to the listeners, if you have found yourself in an emotionally abusive relationship or a narcissistic abusive relationship, please don't guilt yourself. Don't feel guilty. Don't beat up on yourself. We can only do uh, what we can do with what we currently have, with what we currently know. So it's what they say, once you know better, you do better. So, right now, just look in the mirror and tell yourself that you love who you see, I love myself. because the words you speak over yourself is the words that's going to help empower you to make those steps to create that happy that you truly deserve.
Right. Vanessa, how can people get in touch with you if they want to discuss coaching? What future projects do you have coming up?
Okay, well, they can contact me on my website, www.emberempowerment.com. That is EMBEREMPOWERMENT.com. Also, I am currently writing a book. It's called Peaceful Dysfunction, Childhood Wounds and Codependent Love. And this book reflects through third person, based on my story, just the things that I went through, reflecting from childhood wounds to, being in a codependent relationship, and helping people to hopefully get something from the story that they can use to find freedom to live peacefully and authentically free.
So
Awesome.
just, I'm sorry, just to kind of, put a bow on this topic, I do want to finish out the other bullet points that I found from my research as far as, dealing with narcissists and narcissism with, people from all walks of life. And again, this doesn't always have to be a significant other. It could be a family member. It could be a former lover or a baby daddy, for example. So some of the things that I picked up, prioritize your needs, values, and limits, and make sure that you establish them with said individual. Be even keel, because oftentimes narcissists, they enjoy seeing you squirm. They take pleasure in seeing you suffer if they feel that you have attacked them or that you are after them. So therefore, when you give them a reaction, you are falling into their hands. So to give context, right? With my ex-girlfriend, her baby daddy would constantly threaten her with trying to take the baby away. And I would be like, this dude says that every time that he talks to you, but he's a single guy living the single bachelor life. You really think he's ready to be a single dad? Like, he's doing this because he knows that you give him that rise, and he knows that that's a sore spot for you. And he knows that that is very dear to you, obviously her son. So he would threaten that, but he never followed through with it. And he never even got a damn lawyer to take the child away. It was just to fuck with her and needle her. And obviously she, would fall into it. And this was just me just being in the same room as I would listen to some of these conversations. And then I would be the one that would have to console and help her after she got done having these conversations with this man because of, the constant attacks.
That's emotional abuse.
Oh, absolutely. And he was doing that even when they were just co-parenting. So they weren't even together. And he was still, flexing on her like that. As it comes to, communicating with narcissists, you want to communicate with a purpose and with a goal. Don't give too much if you don't have to. If you're literally meeting to drop off your child, then keep it. Hey, we're meeting at the park. I'm bringing my son. See you at 2. You don't need to give more. You don't need to say, hey, I'm taking Junior. I'm going to drop Junior off because I'm going to the mountains with my girl. You don't need to do all that. You just need to say, hey, this is the goal and this is the objective for our interaction. Keep it short and sweet, because remember, what you give them, they may use against you. And do not give them power over your self-worth, because they normally don't have a conscience and they don't relate with other people's feelings and opinions. So they do not care if they are hurting your feelings or how you feel, because they only value their opinion, and others people's input and feelings and opinions, they frankly don't give a fuck.
Lack of empathy.
Lack of empathy. Absolutely.
That's a great list. Great list. This has been an amazing conversation tonight. Would love to keep going. I know this has been one of our longer shows, but I mean, every ounce of it has been delicious for me. I think this has been very healing. Hopefully, for some that are out there, especially a lot of our listeners who are on the Facebook feed. Thank you all, as always, for your feedback, because this actually is a show based on conversations and relationships and different things that we've encountered. And again, our listeners are absolutely the best. Thank you all for your support. If you have show ideas for us moving forward, and don't forget, we're still looking for a co-host, a fan who would like to be a co-host on the show. So please, email us at Jorge and Nelsa. That's ANDNELSA. Jorge is JORGE at gmail.com. Jorge and Nelsa at gmail.com. Or you can go to our website, www.therelationshipcycle.com. And we do hope you are going over to our YouTube channel, which has every show now, thanks to Jorge. Excellent.
Hey, that's that was something that we really wanted to get off, and we will be uploading this new show this weekend. This episode obviously will be dropping this weekend or this Saturday, and this will also be on our YouTube channel on Saturday. Please follow us, subscribe, comment, give us likes, and share so that we can continue to have amazing topics and amazing conversations for everyone that enjoys them.
All right. So until next time, everybody, thank you, Coach V. I've really enjoyed having you. Thank you for sharing your story. And Jorge, take us on out.
Hey, buenas noches, good people. Thank you for your support and love.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today on The Relationship Cycle with Jorge and Nelsa. Do you have show ideas? Email us at jorgeandnelsa@gmail.com. Follow us on Spotify or anchor.fm for more great shows.